Joshua, son of Nun, sent 2 men securely from Shittim as spies, saying, "Go view the land, especially Jericho." So they went and entered the house of a prostitute whose name was Rahab and spent the night there. The king of Jericho was told, "Some Israelites have come here tonight to search out the land." Then the king of Jericho sent orders to Rahab, "Bring out the men who have come to you, who entered your house, for they have come only to search out the whole land." But the woman took the 2 men and hid them. Then she said, "True, the men came to me, but I did not know where they came from." And when it was time to close the gate at dark, the men went out. Where the men went, I do not know. Pursue them quickly, for you can overtake them. She had, however, brought them up to the roof and hidden them with the stalks of flax that she had laid out on the roof. So the men pursued them on the way to the Jordan as far as the fords. As soon as the pursuers had gone out, the gate was shut. Before they went to sleep, she came up to them on the roof and said to the men, "I know that the Lord has given you the land, and that dread of you has fallen on us, and that all the inhabitants of the land melt in fear before you. For we have heard how the Lord dried up the water of the Red Sea before you when you came out of Egypt, and what you did to the 2 kings of the Amorites that were beyond the Jordan, to Sihon and Og, whom you utterly destroyed. As soon as we heard it, our hearts melted, and there was no courage left in any of us because of you. The Lord, your God, is indeed God in heaven above and on earth below. Now then, since I have dealt kindly with you, swear to me by the Lord that you in turn will deal kindly with my family. Give me a sign of good faith, that you will spare my father and mother, my brothers and sisters, and all who belong to them, and deliver our lives from death." The men said to her, "Our life for yours. If you do not tell this business of ours, then we will deal kindly and faithfully with you when the Lord gives us the land." Then she let them down by a rope through the window, for her house was on the outer side of the city wall, and she resided within the wall itself. She said to them, "Go toward the hill country, so that the pursuers may not come upon you. Hide yourselves there 3 days, until the pursuers have returned. Then afterward you may go your way." Verse 17. The men said to her, "We will be released from this oath that you have made us swear to you, if we invade the land and you do not tie this crimson cord in the window through which you let us down, and you do not gather into your house your father and mother, your brothers, and all your family. If any of you go out of the doors of your house into the street, they shall be responsible for their own death, and we shall be innocent. But if a hand is laid upon any who are with you in the house, we shall bear the responsibility for their death. But if you tell this business of ours, then we shall be released from this oath that you made us swear to you." She said, "According to your words, so be it." She sent them away, and they departed. Then she tied the crimson cord in the window. Verse 22, they departed and went into the hill country and stayed there 3 days until the pursuers returned. The pursuers had searched all along the way and found nothing. Then the 2 men came down again from the hill country. They crossed over, came to Joshua, son of Nun, and told him all that had happened to them. They said to Joshua, "Truly, the Lord has given all the land into our hands. Moreover, all the inhabitants of the land melt in fear before us." Amen. And then in chapter 6, we see that Jericho was taken over, and Rahab did tie the crimson cord, and she and her family was spared. 1664. 1664 was the year that the first law concerning interracial marriage was passed in America. Maryland, still a British colony during that time, prohibited white women, from marrying Negro slaves. 1691. The Commonwealth of Virginia bans all interracial marriage of any kind. White people would be exiled from the Commonwealth if they married Negroes, mulattoes, or American Indians. If this couple were to have children, their children would be taken to the church, or taken by the church, rather, and live the rest of their lives as servants. 1883. Move on about 200 years, and the Supreme Court upholds the stance that state laws banning interracial marriage is still constitutional, allowing states to continue to imprison individuals in interracial marriages. This ruling was known as Pace versus Alabama. 1922. The United States Congress passes the Cable Act, stripping away white Americans' citizenship should they marry an Asian American. 1967. There was a case called Loving versus Virginia, and it overturned Pace versus Alabama, stating that interracial marriage bans are unconstitutional, according to the 14th Amendment. 2000, year 2000, Alabama finally legalizes interracial marriage. It becomes the last state to do so. Today is America's Independence Day, so I thought I'd give you a little American history lesson here. We have heard so much concerning race recently, haven't we? From Rachel Dolezal, the NAACP president who actually believes that she is African American, despite having two white Anglo parents. And then we've heard the aggressive behavior of cops towards a 14-year-old black girl in McKinney, Texas, not too far from here. And then more recently, we've heard about the shooting, about the murderous acts of Dylan Roof in Charleston, South Carolina, at Emmanuel African Methodist Episcopalian Church. And then we've also heard about the 8 burnings of traditionally African American historic churches in multiple areas of the United States of America. And maybe there are more than 8 churches that have been burned recently. And I've recently come across even this news that 3 female black pastors were given death threats in the front of the doors of their church. This weekend actually, the American church grieves the lives that have been lost and the properties that have been destroyed recently. We gather together in solemn assembly with heavy hearts because of the victimization of men and women by a spirit of superiority. We gather because significant purpose-filled lives have been lost and hatred continues to persist in this city, in this state, in this country, in this world. And tomorrow, churches all over America have been called to dedicate time and prayer to petition our Father in heaven for an end to racism. Tomorrow, the church joins together with the greater church in begging God for an end to racism, for an end to the spirit of hate that runs so rampant. We think that we are past racism. So many people think, but our history is not too long ago, as we see earlier. Only in 2000, Alabama legalized interracial marriage. Just 15 years ago. So in Joshua 2, we encounter a strange scene with an incredible woman. First, Joshua sends out spies to view the land, especially Jericho. He wants to conquer Jericho as God commanded that this land is promised for Israel. So the spies went to Jericho, and instead of viewing the land, they went to the red light district. They went to the room of a prostitute. Instead of viewing the land, they viewed a woman's body. But because God works in mysterious ways that we don't understand, the spies who slept with the prostitute, maybe, were saved, and they also saved a Canaanite by creating an oath with her in exchange for her hospitality. She must have given real good hospitality, you know what I mean, since her life was worth saving, even though God said to destroy all the Canaanites. But more than the sexual escapades of what was supposed to be good Jewish men, maybe warriors, these spies, I think that the story is interesting because Rahab was a minority in the story. She was not Jewish, and she certainly was not a man. Rahab was not a mother, but her virtue lies in her faith, and she is made a heroine in the story. A minority saving the Jews. A non-Jew saving the Hebrews. Her virtue lies in her faith and in the God of Israel and the loyalty that she maintains to her family. In verses 12 to 13, we see Rahab negotiating for her family's life in exchange for the kindness that she had given them. This is problematic in many ways. Maybe you don't think much of it because we live in the 21st century now, and women have more rights than ever before. But back then, this was a strange thing for a woman to do. It was actually problematic. Because the Canaanites were unclean. And they were supposed to conquer and destroy the entire people and their possessions. And it's even more problematic because Rahab is a woman. And she isn't supposed to be the one negotiating the terms for her family's life. Actually, in that culture, Rahab would have been out of line. It's bad enough that she's a prostitute, but now she's also negotiating the terms of her family's life. Rahab was doing a man's job in a man's world, but she doesn't care because she knows what she has to do. She has faith in Yahweh, even though it was still a small faith. She said that it was your Lord, your God. She hasn't said my Lord, my God yet. But she has a growing faith in Yahweh ever since hearing the stories of what Yahweh has done in Egypt or past Egypt, in the Jordan, even in Canaan, neighboring lands. So she heard of God's might and faithfulness, and now she wants to be a part of that life too. She wants to be a part of this Hebrew story. But Rahab, poor Rahab, wasn't she aware that Jews would not treat her well? That even if her life was saved and the Jews did take her in, didn't she know that it would be miserable to live as an outsider amongst devoted Jewish people? After all, what could she offer them in their society? It doesn't say that she baked or that she sewed or that she made pottery. It didn't say that she did that to contribute to society. No, she offered up herself for male gratification. A Canaanite living amongst Jews during that time was like social suicide. The Jews were out to conquer Canaan, not to live with the daughter of Canaan. And then I wonder if her family even wanted to be saved. Did they think that it would have been better for them to die during the conquer than to live amongst Hebrew people? Did they live in constant fear of what people would think about them or what people would do to them? After all, they would see their friends and their extended relatives and murdered. What would prevent the Hebrew people from